We hustle, but the night we
know that the ride or die.
Welcome to the House of the Princess.
I keep waiting by my seat. Know that the ride or die.
I'm 50% righteous, 50% ratchet.
we hustle, but the night
Waiting by my seat. Know that the ride or die. My name came up a lot of sounds. More when
Thank
I
y'all
was
for
not
joining
around.
us.
Certain people that I know.
Hey y'all, welcome. I know it's late, but I think I was late here last time. If this is your first time joining us, or maybe if you're coming back, I want to welcome you to the House of the Princess. I am your host, Princess. Okay, and welcome to my house. Please show a few manners to me, show some love, hit the like button, and definitely hit the subscribe button. Everybody check your subscription. Make sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And also hit your notification bell so that you will know whenever I go live. You know what I'm saying? And you can get more content. I am working on coming back to y'all and giving you more content. Don't beat me up, okay? I am working on giving you more content. But those who know, you know that I am in school full-time, working full-time. I'm just doing a lot, and so I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to make it in, okay? That's all I can say about that. But I hope that when I do slide through, just like your man that you like, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to come up today. I still got a lot of work that I'm trying to finish, but I didn't want to leave things open. I've been starting stuff and not finishing things. So I wanted to finish reading this complaint. I know Diddy, I didn't want to do it on Easter Sunday. I still got more homework to do. I'd rather do that and maybe come in if I get a little time, play some games, come on camera, or talk to you other than reading court proceedings on God's resurrection day. Okay. Excuse me. So yes, I'm sitting here and I almost was like late because I was sitting here and the clock said 10:56 and I was good. I'm sitting here finishing flyers. When I tell you I have a plate full, you guys have no idea. I am even helping like plan my class it's like a super class reunion. Our all class reunion. So it's like I always have something to do right now. Okay. And I got people that I'm making flyers for, proms, backgrounds for. So I need to actually pick that up some more because I need some monies. Okay. And speaking of monies, like if you want to help a girl out and you would like to give to the cause, please do. Okay. Y'all know how to do the Cash App and super chat. If you're watching on the review, you could give a super thanks. Venmo, I accept all that stuff. So I don't want to go into all of the big and stuff right now. We just started. But I just hope that the content is good to you, okay? So without further ado, because I am sitting up here multitasking, and I will get to babbling and doing art on y'all. Thank you for the love and for the hearts. I see them. Babbling and not do what I came to do, and that is to read to you. Okay, so hopefully my voice stays intact. And they don't do like the other day. My allergy, even though the back of my ear is itching, that's a signal of my allergy. That everything is up. I did comb my hair. That's another thing. I did comb my hair. So when I just now don't feel like turning on the lights. And like I said, I'll be reading. So it's no point in me getting on camera like that. Maybe when I'm doing something else. So where we left off, halfway through this thing, okay? We are on page number 225. Okay, is it up there? Okay, here we go. Number 225 in this complaint. If you want to hear what happened thus far, go back and watch the original video. Go and like that one. I'm watching across the room. In the next room, I still got the 10 Commandments on. And what I had said I was going to do, I never do what I said I was going to do, was go to bed early today and get up and do stuff. I was going to watch a movie. I still have not watched Mea Culpa. But one thing I did watch earlier was Selena's and Yolanda Saldivar. That was very interesting to me. So it was Selena and Yolanda. It was secrets between theirs. It was 2 episodes, and that was quite good. And so in 2 days, it will be the anniversary of the death of 29th year death of Selena. And next year, Yolanda Saldivar is up for parole. And there was some interesting things that came out and that was talked about in there that I didn't know about. I don't know if I'll review it. Y'all can let me know if you want me to. Say something in the comments or in the chat. Engagement is always good. Yes, Catherine. Hey, how you doing? And let's all give a happy belated birthday to Miss Weedy Pooh. Okay, she does not look like she has what she has been through. And I thank God for Weedy Pooh, okay? She is wonderful. Okay, now let's get into it. Upon information and belief, and the true nature of the defendant's scheme was left undisclosed, was omitted, and or affirmably misrepresented to all to fraudulently increase the defendant's profits, or at least some of which were used to expand the enterprise, causing further injury to the plaintiff Jones and other unwitting artists, creatives, musicians, and producers. Upon information and belief, defendants profited from the enterprise, and the plaintiff Jones suffered because the enterprise diminished the plaintiff Jones' finances due to 13 months of non-payment and diminished plaintiff Jones' health through consistent drugging and forced sexual encounters with prostitutes and sex working. Hey, Misunderstood, welcome. Defendants used the proceeds from this scheme to advance the scheme by funding, operating their marketing machine, including through the use of mail, social media, word of mouth, and interstate wires, to sell the illusion that Mr. Combs was serious about the talents and skills of artists, creatives, musicians, and producers, and wanted to use those skills to make music when nothing could be further from the truth. Defendants provided their artists, creatives, musicians, and producers with this misrepresentative information, including via email, all over interstate wireline communication systems, and obtaining free labor, the distribution of drugs and firearms, as well as prostitutes, sex workers, and minors. Defendants obtained revenue via wire transfers, documents, and banking transactions that were exchanged via electronic means over interstate wires, thereby growing the enterprise and causing further injury to plaintiff Jones as described throughout. Upon information and belief, the defendant's scheme was reasonably calculated to deceive the plaintiff Jones, artists, creatives, musicians, and producers of ordinary prudence and comprehension through the execution of their complex and illegal scheme to misrepresent the effectiveness and soliciting prostitutes, sex workers, and minors in distributing drugs and guns that did not, would not, or could not lead to securing Grammy Awards, purchasing a $20 million home, participating in future projects, $250,000 in cash payments, and meeting influential music industry executives. Plaintiff Jones would not have lived with Mr. Combs for 13 months, missing birthdays, holidays, and family events, but for the illegal racketeering scheme operated by the defendants. So they are saying that these record companies, they help fund the foolishness, and he wouldn't have went through all this had he known that he wasn't gonna get paid. But again, I stand on business. Ain't nobody promised me no $20 million home just for some production. Gone somewhere. Like that was, I don't know what to think about that. Let me close one of my tabs, please. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to get some memory here to my screen. Okay. Upon information and belief, defendants each had the specific intent to participate in the overall RICO enterprise and the scheme to defraud Plaintiff Jones, and each participated in the enterprise as follows. Upon information and belief, defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Combs Global Motown, all them people we know, the group, and control and participate in the activities of the enterprise in variety of ways as set forth herein, including but not limited to developing and marketing scores of writing camps and listening party services that are marketed to innocent, unassuming artists, creators, musicians, and producers who are. Throughout the relevant period, defendant Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity as CEO of UMG, authorized Motown Records and Universal Music Group to enter into a general partnership with Sean Combs and Love Records as general for the partners' actions in the partnership. Defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Motown, all the people, have an ethical obligation to ensure their business partners, Sean Combs and Love Records, were not using the partnership's assets to engage in illegal activity. And this is the way he has linked all of them. Basically, he's saying that UMG and Motown, which, you know, all of them come under Universal Music Group, should have been responsible, should have been paying attention where the money going, paying attention to what Diddy was doing with the money and doing in his personal life to protect the unassuming artists. And, you know, that's kind of shaky. It's like, you know, I can't even watch my kids and make sure out of everything I taught them, to keep them from doing things they want to do in their regular life. Like, nobody can control a person to that magnitude. So I find that interesting. Defendants Lucian Charles Grange, in the capacity of CEO of UMG, authorized Motown Records and Universal Music Group to provide financial resources to their general business partners, defendants Sean Combs and Love Records. Defendants Sean Combs and Love Records used the financial resources provided by their general business partners to solicit through mail, email, and social media and telephone artists, creatives, musicians, and producers whom they would promise Grammy Awards, expensive property, participation on future projects, cash payments, and meetings with powerful music industry executives. Defendants Sean Combs and Love Records instructed defendants Justin Combs, Christina Coram, and her staff to solicit these artists, creatives, musicians, and producers who resided in New York, Illinois, California, Georgia, and Florida. Defendants Justin Combs and KK and her staff relied on the mail, email, and social media messenger and telephone to disseminate the misleading information described herein. Defendants Sean Combs, Love Records, Justin Combs, and KK did not disclose to the individuals that they solicited the fact that they would be drugged and required to sleep with sex workers and forced to work for days at a time without compensation. As it relates to the plaintiff Jones, defendants Sean Combs, Love Records, and KK controlled his ability to travel. They did not provide him with full compensation for work he provided, and as a result, Mr. Jones did not have the finances to return home without defendant Sean Combs, Love Records, and KK paying for it. On several occasions in Miami, Florida, he asked defendant Sean Combs and KK for permission to visit his family for their birthdays and holidays. Defendant Sean Combs and KK refused. They went as far as threatening Mr. Jones by telling him that if he left, he would not be paid for the work he had done and would not be allowed to return, and he would not receive that promised Grammy Award, expensive property, participation in future projects, cash payments, and meetings with influential music industry executives. And again, this is when you let money blind you. And, you know, if he's done work with other artists, he should have sense enough to have some money in the side. You got a whole kid that you raising. And so what you saying is for 13 months, you didn't send no child support home. Like, how do you even explain that to your family that you out here working with Diddy and you saying, you know, in the end, you're going to work in the end. Well, meanwhile, I'm back at home, homeless. You know what I'm saying? Rent ain't cheap here in Chicago, okay? So you got your baby mama, wife, whatever, working. You're not paying no child support. You're not paying no rent. You're going to keep telling this woman that you're going to sit here and you're going to stay with this man. Living a life where they think you living a big life, you know. And you ain't got no money. You ain't had no money just put up. Like, you couldn't have sent a smoke signal to your people. Like, mama, I need $200. Come home. Like, for real. Because you scared that you won't come back. Again, this is supposed to be a believer of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And you believe God. And, you know, it's contradictory. It really is. And who they put it, Tyrone over here put in this complaint talking about they didn't let these people know that they was going to be sex trafficked and drugged. Like, you know, that's not a selling point. Why would they? You're not going to disseminate that you're doing crimes. I guess, child. Let's go. We got a lot to do. In connection with the defendants acting from New York, these defendants used the mail and interstate. Did I read this? Okay. Interstate wires to solicit plaintiff Jones, artists, creatives, musicians, and producers to use the plaintiff Jones. To use plaintiff Jones and artists, creatives, musicians, and producers to utilize their talents and labor to produce music and other tangible goods and services without full compensation, as well as the solicitation of sexual encounters with prostitutes, sex workers, and the purchasing of distribution of illegal firearms and guns. Each of these acts was undertaken with the knowledge and approval of all other defendants to further the goals of their conspiracy. After you let this man play in between your legs and in your butt. Defendants Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity of CEO of UMG, authorized Motown Records and Universal Music Group to provide financial resources to their general business partners, defendant Sean Combs and Love Records, as the financial supplier of the defendant Sean Combs and Love Records. Defendants Charles Lucian, okay, blah, 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 had a duty to direct and control the manner in which the defendant, Sean, used the money they supplied. In furtherance of the goals of their conspiracy, Lucian, in his capacity as CEO, used the Love album as a ruse to provide Diddy and his record company with financial resources he used to execute his RICO enterprise. Throughout the relevant period, defendants Sean Combs and Love Records used financial resources as the general business partners provided to solicit potential artists, creators, musicians, and producers as detailed throughout, and they relied on mail, email, social media, text messages, and WhatsApp messages to disseminate the misleading information described herein and profit from the free labor of these artists, creatives, musicians, and producers. In addition to the forced free labor, they use their power and influence to force these creatives to solicit sex workers to engage in unwanted sexual encounters with these sex workers. They also use their power and influence to force these creatives to purchase, transport, and distribute illegal firearms and drugs. As a general business partner of the defendant Sean Combs and Love Records, defendant Lucian Grange, CEO of all the record companies, are equally liable for the commission of these acts. These people wasn't doing it, but they said because you the big dog, you responsible. I guess. And we do have something that they have been filing papers back and forth every day after this. Upon information and belief, defendants Lucian Grange in his capacity as CEO of UMG, authorizing Motown Records and Universal Music Group to provide financial resources to the defendants, Sean Puffy and the record company, through wire transfers to defendant Sean Combs' accountant, Robin Greenhill. Upon information and belief, Ms. Greenhill ensured the wiring, funds transfer, or cash payments to sex workers were completed. Defendant KK, through her direct reports to Frankie Santella, Moy Bond, and Brendan Paul, would negotiate the fees of the sex workers and received and would ensure that the workers were paid in one of the manners detailed above. Of course, I thought we said that the sex workers was paid in Cash App too. That's what they had said, but I'm just saying. According to Plaintiff Jones, defendant Sean Combs bragged about having several women on a monthly stipend. According to Plaintiff Jones, the women who received these payments are Carisha Romika Brownlee. Her name is Romika, Lord have mercy. A.K.A. Young Miami. Jade Ramey, a.k.a. Jade, and Daphne Joy Cervantes Narvaez, a.k.a. Daphne Joy, who were paid a monthly fee to work as Mr. Combs' sex workers. Based on information and belief, they received payment via wire transfer from Robin Greenhill. It was unclear if they were provided the appropriate United States federal tax documents for these payments or if they were independently declared these payments on their taxes. It is unclear if defendants Lucian Grange, in his capacity of CEO of UMG Motown Records and Universal Music Group, requested an audit of defendant Sean Combs and Love Records financial records to ensure the financial support that they provided to defendant Sean Combs and Love Records as a part of their general business partnership not being used to pay Carisha Romika Brownlee, Jade Ramey, and Daphne Joy Cervantes Narvaez. Hey, Roxy, look, I understand what Funky Dineva is saying. Like, these are his sugar babies. I know he was trying to be the Black Hugh Hefner. That's not quite the same, even though, and we know Carisha is a whore. It's just not the same as like a regular whore. It's like a high class whore, you know. Those are his sugar babies, his concubines. Mind you, you know, so that's, yeah. It's not the same as a regular hoe, if you want to call it that. But I don't know if they were, so to speak, on the payroll. Those are gifts, you know, that you give to your little girlfriend. Hugh Hefner had Holly, And what's the other girl? Kendra and them, all the girls on the payroll, you know, you was the main girlfriend. You got your allowance. During the 10 years preceding the filing of this action to the president, all defendants did cooperate jointly and severally in the commission of 3 or more of the predicate acts that are itemized. I don't know all those numbers. What did I do? I don't know all those numbers. So we're going to keep going on. Beginning at an exact date known to the plaintiff, but within 10 years preceding the filing of this action, defendants have knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully participated in a pattern of racketeering activity that continues to this day. The acts below, racketeering acts, follow the same pattern and purpose to defraud the plaintiff for the defendant's benefit. Each racketeering act involved the same or similar methods of commission and participants. So like they saying, like, you did this, right? On purpose, because you's a fraud, okay? Defendant's business would not have succeeded without the repeated predicate acts and ability to conduct fraud using mail, telecommunications, wires, interstate travel, international travel, and money laundering. Okay? Separate racketeering acts all relate to each other in that they are part of concerted actions by defendants to use the endorsement and channels of the enterprise to operate their business to solicit potential artists, creatives, musicians, and producers. As detailed throughout, they relied on mail, email, social media, text messages, and WhatsApp messages to disseminate the misleading information described herein and profit from the free labor of these artists, creators, musicians, and producers. In addition to the forced labor, they use their power and influence to force these creators to solicit sex workers and to engage in unwanted sexual encounters with these sex workers. They also use their power to influence to force these creators to purchase, transport, and distribute illegal firearms and drugs. The separate racketeering acts all relate to each other in that they are part of a concerted actions by the defendants to use and the endorsement of channels of the enterprise to operate their businesses to fraudulently induce Plaintiff Jones, the artists, creators, musicians, and producers to utilize their talents and labors to produce music and other tangible goods and services without full compensation. In addition to the forced free labor, they use their power and influence to force these creators to solicit sex workers and to engage in unwanted sexual encounters with these sex workers. They also use their power and influence to force the creators to purchase, transport, and distribute illegal firearms and drugs. It seems like they're saying the same thing over and over again. The defendant's wrongful conduct has injured Plaintiff Jones, remains part of their ongoing business practices, and continues to threaten the plaintiff, Jones, and the public. Look, Moses over there on my other TV on the mountain with the 10 Commandments. Defendants' association with the enterprise enabled defendants to conduct, direct, and control the pattern of fraudulent illegal activities over a substantial number of years, which continue to this day. To further their goals, defendants worked in concert to engage in various forms of criminal activity, including the solicitation of sexual encounters with sex workers and the purchasing and distribution of illegal firearms and drugs. The defendant's ongoing racketeering activity has injured and continues to injure Plaintiff Jones. The defendant's pattern of forcing Plaintiff Jones and the artists, creators, musicians, and producers to solicit sex encounters with sex workers, and to purchase, transport, distribute illegal drugs and firearms was the approximate cause of the injuries suffered by the plaintiff. Okay. I'm going to start skipping over some of this stuff because it's a mess. Defendants committed multiple acts of sex trafficking in violation of these acts. Sex trafficking of children by force, fraud, or coercion by furtherance of enterprise. So that's another charge. As detailed, all them defendants and KK through her direct reports to Frankie Santella Moy-Braun and Brendan Paul knowingly affected interstate foreign commerce or within special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States by recruiting, enticing, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, advertising, maintaining, patronizing, or soliciting by any means a person, Lil Rod, to engage in sexual acts. In addition to violating federal law, these acts violated the following state statutes: Florida Penal Code, blah, 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 California Penal Code, New York Penal Code, United States Virgin Islands Penal Code. So this is when they took him on the boat and they fucked on him, okay? It was trying to get Cuba Gooding to touch on him too. The defendants and KK, through her direct reports to Frankie Santella, Moy-Braun, and Brendan Paul's actions may have violated the laws of St. Bartholomew, St. Bart's. As detailed through this pleading, the defendants, Lucian Grange and record companies, to provide financial resources to the Sean Combs and Love Records through their general business partnership. Lucian, the CEO, okay, Love Records, Sean Combs, and by extension through Sean Combs, Justin, and KK, all of them, knowingly benefited financially or by receiving anything of value in venture which was engaged in an act described in violation of paragraph 1. Okay, skip down to 48. The defendants, except where act constituted in violation of paragraph 1, advertising reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threatened force, fraud, coercion, described in subsection E2 of 18 U.S.C., or any combination of such means will be used to cause plaintiff Jones to engage in several commercial sex acts. And I'm curious, what is a commercial sex act? By way of example, on or about January 28, 2023, we got some notes there about it. Lil Rod was residing in defendant Combs' home at the 2-Star Island Drive in Miami, Florida. Defendant Sean Combs and KK forced, Mr. Jones to send Ubers to transport a sex worker to Mr. Combs' home located at 2-Star Island Drive in Miami, Florida. We have the complete text thread and have intentionally opted not to include it here to protect the identity of the sex worker. Defendant Combs forced Mr. Jones to have sex with this individual against his will. According to Mr. Jones, defendant Combs felt there was too much testosterone in the studio and wanted sex workers there to create a vibe for the Love album. Upon information and belief, this Uber and this sex worker were compensated from the financial support of the defendants, Lucian, the CEO, and all the record companies, to provide Sean Combs and Love Records for the recording costs associated with the creation of the Love album. So we have a note here. According to counsel for the defendants, Lucian Grange, Motown Records, UMG, they ended their general business partnership agreement with Mr. Combs and Love Records at some point during the month of February 2023. In the interest of preserving Plaintiff Jones' Fifth Amendment rights, we will provide the remaining text messages and voice memos in the court in camera. It is important for the court to remember that the plaintiff was coerced through threats of violence to engage in these acts. Additionally, defendants KK and Diddy controlled the purse, and they would only allow the plaintiff to leave their custody and control based on their terms. Okay, so here go the Uber. They sent for the Uber. That's a long way to go get some pussy. That's how you know they was going to the slums, going down in the poor side of town to go get them, right? I'm looking at Moses with the white hair. A $50 Uber. I'm trying to see how far they went. Now, I haven't been to Miami, but I'm just looking like, Jesus Christ. I should have been to Miami a while back. Okay, Moses ain't finna go to the promised land just like Diddy ain't. By way of example, on or about February 8th, 2023, Plaintiff Jones was forced by the defendants Sean Combs and KK to send Ubers to transport sex workers from Mr. Combs' home located in 2-Star Island Drive, Miami, Florida. And we have the complete text thread and have intentionally blah, blah, blah. Again, opted out not to include it here to protect the identity of this sex worker. Defendant Combs forced Mr. Jones to have sex with the individual against his will. And according to Mr. Jones, defendant Combs felt there was two. We just read this. Why did they put it twice? That's interesting. I ain't gonna read it again. Here goes some more. Oh, I guess they had to put it once for every time he sent an Uber to go get some pussy. Some meow. Okay, so we see again. He did go to the hood. He went and got some hoes from Carroll City. Now we all know that's the hood. Shouts out to Funky Dineva. Shouts out to Tracy Young Byron. That's where the people come from. Ocho Cinco, Luke, okay. All the people from Florida. Okay, I'm sorry. You know, you always got to watch the end of the Ten Commandments. Where Moses, he went to heaven or wherever he went. Because he didn't die. But anywho, they went all the way up there to the hood to get some hoes and brought them all the way down to the little Star Island in Miami. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Right. Okay. So from at least in about September 2022 up to including in or about November 2023 in the states of New York, California, and United States Virgin Islands, and elsewhere, defendants Sean Combs and KK and others known and unknown in and affecting the interstate commerce did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree to recruit, entice, or harbor, transfer, provide, obtain, and maintain by any means a person and to benefit financially by receiving anything of value from the participation in a venture which has engaged in such act, knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threatens of force, fraud, coercion, and a combination of such means would be used to cause the person, Lil Rod, to engage in commercial sex acts, to wit defendants Sean Combs and Christina and other known and unknowns, cause Lil Rod to engage in commercial sex acts in the United States cities of Miami, Los Angeles, and New York, as well as within the special maritime and territorial jurisdictions of the United States by means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion, and a combination of such means. They had him fucking all over the world. Okay. In furtherance of the conspiracy and the effect of illegal object thereof, following overt acts, among others, were committed to the states of New York, California, Florida, the Virgin Islands, and elsewhere. In or about September 2022, Diddy, through his authorized agent, Frankie Santella, recruited Lil Rod to work for him as a producer, musician, and creative for Love Records. Defendant Combs promised to pay Mr. Jones the following to work on the Love album, $20,000 per song, 4 royalty points, credit as a producer, credit for each instrument Mr. Jones played. Mr. Jones must retain his publishing rights. We went over that. In or about September 2022, defendant Sean Combs began slowly grooming the plaintiff by directly, and we got a note there, teaching Mr. Jones how to go about recruiting sex workers. He provided Mr. Jones with a bad boy baseball cap, instructed his agents, Stevie J and Moy Bond, to teach plaintiff Jones the type of sex workers to solicit and the way to solicit them. Let's see what our notes are. We have a recording taken by Mr. Jones at the club in Miami, Florida. This was the night that Mr. Combs personally taught Mr. Jones how to solicit sex workers. We provide a copy of the video to the court. So who took the video? This is how you go get the hoes, sir. This is what I like. Okay. As a part of the grooming of plaintiff Jones, in or about December 2022, while on a yacht, defendant Combs bragged about and detailed how he got away with the New York City nightclub shooting in 1999. Was you around then, Roxy? In or about January 2023, while in his home in Miami, defendant Combs required Mr. Jones to work out of his bedroom and watch. Defendant Combs distributed guns to individuals dressed in all black. In or about April 2023 in Los Angeles, defendant Combs distributed guns to individuals that Mr. Jones knew to be members of a local gang. In or about April 2023, defendant Combs threatened to eat Mr. Jones's face and informed him that he would not hesitate to kill his own mama to get what he wanted. As evidenced by the chart below, at the direction of defendants Combs and Christina Combs, plaintiff Jones was forced to solicit identified sex workers. And these workers were brought to Combs' home, 2 Star Island Drive and 1 Star Island Drive, and plaintiff Jones had no authority to invite guests to Combs' home without either Combs or defendants KK's consent. And Combs' property is protected by a 24-hour security, and all visitors must be verified before entry. Can you please hit the like button? Are you coming in? Can you please hit the like button? I need you to get me at least halfway there. I've gotten you halfway there, so I need you to get me there too. Somebody go check on Janice. Y'all, it's crazy. So these are the dates that the hoes came over. I guess the last 2 digits of their cell phone. Woo. Okay. So he had he had his favorites. So he had some of the same hoes come over. Oh, he really liked sex worker number 7. She got all the money. She came in like 3, 4, 5 days in a row. Okay. Some of them overlap, Yeah, they do them at the same time. Okay. He really liked her. I wonder what she looked like. From at least in or about September 22 up to and including in or about November 2023 in the states of New York, California, Florida, United States Virgin Islands, and elsewhere, defendant Sean Combs and KK and others known and unknown in affecting interstate commerce knowingly did recruit, entice, harbor, transfer, provide, obtain, maintain, and by any means in person a Lil Rod and did benefit financially by receiving anything from this value from participating in a venture which has engaged in any such act, knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact by means of force, threats of force, fraud, or coercion, and the combination of such means would be used to cause a person to engage in commercial sex acts, to wit the defendants Diddy and KK caused Lil Rod to engage in commercial sex acts utilizing force, threats of force, fraud, coercion, and combination of such means. Additionally, Diddy received personal gratification by watching Lil Rod engage in commercial sex acts with the aforementioned sex workers. Well, welcome to my channel, Del Monte Green Beans. How are you doing? From at least in or about September 2022 up to and including about November 2023 in the states of New York, California, Florida, and the Virgin Islands and elsewhere, defendants Diddy and KK and others known and unknown in and affecting interstate commerce did use and cause to be used facilities in interstate and foreign commerce, to which internet and cellular telephone device services with the intent to promote, manage, establish, carry, and facilitate the promotion, management, establishment, and carrying of an unlawful activity, to wit a business enterprise involving prostitution, offenses in violation of applicable state law, and thereafter performed and attempted to perform an act to perform, manage, establish, and carry on, and to facilitate the promotion, management, and establishment carried on of such unlawful activity. And that's all about the RICO. The RICO. All about the RICO. Why is my phone going off at this time of night? Would you believe that's my boss sending me a picture of me? Okay. How y'all know I'm up? Oh, I'm on the internet. Defendants committed multiple acts of procuring, transporting, and distributing controlled substances in violation of Title 18 United States Code. So I'm not going to be reading all of this because I have a feeling that's going to say the exact same thing we just read, but it's just going to say drugs, okay? So I'm going to skim through this. This is another statute that Diddy has violated in the RICO, okay? Yeah, they violated Section 18. Okay. This is everybody. Turn to find this group is in fact engaged in activities affected foreign commerce, blah blah blah. Okay. Upon information and belief. Wait, I don't see how nobody came off the shoulders on this dude. What does that mean? And who are you speaking of specifically? Upon information and belief, the Combs RICO enterprise is comprised of individuals residing in and around Los Angeles, California, Miami, Florida, New York, among other places. Members and associates of Combs RICO enterprise have engaged in drug trafficking and firearms trafficking. Upon information and belief, members and associates of Combs RICO enterprise procured, transported, and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms, and Tucci in and around the states of New York, California, Florida, and the Virgin Islands and elsewhere. During the relevant time frame, through their general business partnership, defendants Lucian and the record companies had to provide financial resources to the defendants according to Ethiopia's declaration, and its financial support was supposed to pay or reimburse Love Records for certain of the invoice recording costs incurred by Love Records in the making of the Love album. According to Lil Rod, while the Combs RICO enterprise was procuring, transporting, and distributing ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms, and Tucci was during the making of the Love album. That means they got really, really hot during the album. The purpose of the Combs enterprise, as detailed through this pleading, and according to Plaintiff Jones, the purpose of the Combs enterprise is to use its position, power, and influence to control artists, creators, musicians, and producers to force these creators to purchase, transport, and distribute illegal firearms and drugs, promoting and enhancing the prestige, reputation, and position of the enterprise with respect to rival music labels, artists, and executives, preserving and protecting the power, territory, and criminal ventures of the enterprise through the use of intimidation, threats of violence, and coercion, keeping victims in fear of the enterprise and its members and associates. Okay, where we at? Did I go too far? Did I press the wrong button? No, okay. Oh, it was going up. There we go. Enriching the members and associates of the enterprise through the criminal activity, including narcotics, trafficking, and fraud, concealing the activities of the enterprise from law enforcement by instructing the associates of the enterprise to consult with Fahim Muhammad, the fixer, and the enterprise head of security if they ever encounter any problems with law enforcement. Methods and means of the enterprise. Upon information and belief among the means and methods by which the defendants and their associates conducted and participated in the conduct of the affairs of the enterprise were the following. Members of the enterprise and their associates procured, transported, and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana mushrooms, and Tucci by packing these substances in their carry-on luggage and going through TSA the houseway. Okay. Plaintiff Jones personally witnessed members of the enterprise do this during national and international travel, as detailed below. Damn! So they got all y'all travel stuff. And I guess this is how they got the drug mule, because they knew where he was going. So they took the drugs all the way to England, according to this. Like, y'all couldn't just buy drugs where y'all went. I know some places you can't, but I'm just saying. Mr. Jones is uncertain if the direct flight or if he stopped off in Los Angeles or New York prior to his arrival to St. Bart's. Brendan and KK bought the drugs. Plaintiff and the Combs Rico enterprise were rehearsing for something in the Water Festival in Virginia, and Lil Rod personally witnesses Diddy do a few lines of coke in his dressing room. Defendant Sean Combs wanted Tucci, but Brandon forgot it. So KK called Young Miami, who then brought it on the private jet from Miami. So they had to go pick up some drugs, okay? Because he needed to get high. The pack of cocaine on the carry-on luggage in the garage of defendant Combs' house in the evening of 11/3/23. Defendant Combs and Griggs reunited in London, England, November 7, 2023, for a sold-out show at O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire, and he had to get high for the show. That's what we say. Okay. Now, according to Mr. Jones, the Combs Enterprise defendants informed the members and associates of the enterprise that it would be safe to transport narcotics through their carry-on luggage because of, according to a TSA advisory, TSA security officers do not search for marijuana or other illegal drugs. Now you're going to have us all fucked up, Diddy. And we ain't gonna be able to get through TSA at all. Okay. There's a screening, I guess, what they look for. And the following is a screenshot of the video taken on Mr. Combs' yacht on or about December 25th, 2022 at 2:40 a.m. Brandon Paul is videotaped With one of the black pouches, defendant Combs and KK require the associates and members of the Combs RICO enterprise to carry. The pouch was filled with ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms, and Tucci. And look, it's filled big too. He said, yeah, they got drugs and money. I mean, I'm sure he's been there a whole bunch of times. You ain't got no person, you know. So that was him with the drugs, okay? White boy just got caught up. We're going to see if he going to sing. The pattern of racketeering activity through the defendant, Sean Combs, Love Records. All the defendants, through her direct reports, Frankie Santella, Moy Braun, and Brendan Paul, together with others, agreed to conduct and participate directly and indirectly in the conduct of affairs of the enterprise consisted of multiple offenses involving dealing in controlled substances in violation of Title 21 United States Code sections 841, 843, and 846. It was a part of the conspiracy that each defendant agreed that a conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering activity in the conduct of the affairs of enterprise. So, like, basically, they saying everybody, you know, was in a RICO, and they should get at least 2 counts. Defendant committed multiple acts of mail fraud in violation. Damn, not the mail fraud. Okay, defendants voluntarily and intentionally devised and participated in a scheme to defraud plaintiffs out of money relying on the mail. They committed these acts with the intent to defraud Plaintiff Jones and other artists, creators, musicians, and producers. Defendants used the mail to execute the fraudulent scheme herein. Specifically, the defendants agreed to each of the acts of mail fraud described throughout this complaint. In addition, they agreed to rely on the mail to secure wire frauds and cash payments from purchasers of illegal firearms and drugs they required others to sell and distribute. How you secure a wire fraud in the mail? I don't understand. In furtherance of and for purposes of executing the above described fraudulent and illegal course of conduct and scheme to defraud defendants, either individually or in combination with themselves, used and caused to be used the United States mail by both placing and causing to be placed cash, letters, marketing materials, and advertisements, agreements, and other matters in depositories in violation of the mail fraud statute. You know, I think they went through, you know, when you pay the $89, you know, TSA, and they probably know they was with Diddy and let them through, you know, that special TSA. Man. Checks. Okay. Defendants could not have furthered their fraud without the use of mail. For example, defendants sought to acquire wire transfers and cash payments and utilize their talents and labor to produce music and other tangible goods and services without full compensation. Defendants also required the mail to distribute misleading advertisements to various states, including New York. For these reasons, the use of mail to conduct fraudulent activity was necessary and inevitable. Okay, and the defendants committed multiple acts of wire fraud in violation of another statute. Defendants voluntarily and intentionally devised and participated in a scheme to defraud Lil Rod out of money in reliance on the mail. Defendants, okay, this is saying the same shit. Number 270. Defendants agreed to each of these acts of wire fraud described throughout the complaint. In addition, the defendants agreed to rely on interstate wires and disseminate funds to submit payment to sex workers and prostitutes, as well as to transfer payment for the distribution and procurement of drugs and guns. Defendants illegally acquired wire transfers, money transfers, credit cards, and bank cards via search engines and other online platforms to further their collective goal of furthering their RICO enterprise. Defendants knew that these online purchases were illegally made. Additionally, defendants agreed that the defendants should facilitate these fraudulent purchases over interstate wires in furtherance of the fraud. Sex workers and prostitutes nationwide have received payments from the defendants. We got holes in every area code. In furtherance of the purposes of executing above described fraudulent and illegal course of conduct and scheme or artifice to defraud, defendants either individually or in combination with themselves use or cause to be used interstate wire communications to transmit or disseminate false, fraudulent, and misleading communications and information in violation of the wire fraud statute. Defendants could not have furthered their wire fraud without ability to use telecommunications to share information with clients and retailers worldwide, because defendants need to communicate with clients and retailers around the country using interstate telecommunication wires to conduct the fraudulent activity was unnecessary. So they had to use the mailbox and the telephone, okay? And he couldn't get paid. That's what they say, okay? Defendants' acts or omission were accentuated by actual malice and willful and wanton disregard for the consequences suffered by Lil Rod, with the knowledge of a high degree of probability of harm to Lil Rod and reckless indifference to the consequences of their acts and omission. That means they knew they was doing something to him and they didn't give a fuck. Okay. Compensatory damages alone will be insufficient to deter the conduct in the future. There needs to be criminal referral to the United States Justice Department as well as to the state's attorney's office. So they saying, you know, just paying me ain't enough. You need to go to jail. Okay. Wherein the plaintiff requests that the court issue an order and grant judgment to the plaintiff as follows: granting plaintiff statutory, common law, and punitive damages and applicable pre- and post-judgment interest in full recompense for damages. So they're saying damages shall include but not be limited to all damages permitted under the New Jersey Racketeer Influence and Corrupt RICO Acts. Okay. Okay, my phone going off for what? I thought that was probably my daughter. Sorry, y'all. It must have been an email. Yeah, it was. I only got my phone loud because I'm expecting something. What'd I do here? Oh, okay. Entering judgment according to the declaratory relief sought, granting plaintiff in such other and further relief, including without limitation, injunctive and equitable relief, as the court deems just in all circumstances, and granting the plaintiff an incentive or service award reflective of the work done in prosecuting this action and time spent, the effort and hard cost invested, and results in obtained in the light of the court's judgment, informed by awards in similar cases of comparable difficulty and complexity. This sounds like he want to be immunity. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay. Second cause of action: sexual assault, sexual harassment against Mr. Combs. Y'all, we still got 30 pages. Let's see how much we can get now. Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if it was set forth fully herein. As described above, Mr. Combs frightened and placed the plaintiff in apprehension of harm when he physically and sexually assaulted him from October 2022 to October 2023 in Mr. Combs' home in Miami, New York, United States Virgin Islands, and Los Angeles. Just 6 months ago, y'all. Mr. Combs forcibly touched and attempted to and or threatened to touch the plaintiff's intimate areas and or touched the plaintiff in his own intimate body parts. So he touched him with his dick. So is he a bottom? Is that what that means? Okay, Mr. Combs violently gripped and palmed Mr. Jones's anus and his crotch without his consent. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to work in Mr. Combs' bathroom and watch Mr. Combs as he showered. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to work in the studio while Mr. Combs stripped naked to get his body massage. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to work while Mr. Combs walked around naked. As a result, Diddy's conduct, Lil Rod has suffered and continues to suffer harm, including physical injury, severe emotional distress, humiliation, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which he is entitled to an award of monetary damages and other relief. Did he blow out his booty hole? Mr. Combs' conduct described as willful, wanton, and malicious. At all relevant times, Diddy acted with conscious disregard for Lil Rod's rights and feelings, and acted with the knowledge of or with reckless disregard for the fact that his conduct was sure to cause injury and or humiliation to Lil Rod, and intended to cause fear, physical injury, and or pain and suffering to the plaintiff. By virtue, forging Lil Rod is entitled to recover punitive damage, aka pay me for my pain. Third cause of action, sexually assault against Jane Doe 1, Young Miami's cousin. They put a name out there, I forgot. Mr. Jones incorporates by all reference in all preceding paragraphs that he realleges them as if set forth by herein. As described above, Jane Doe 1 frightened and placed plaintiff in apprehension of harm when she physically and sexually assaulted him on Thanksgiving Day, 2022, in Diddy's home in Miami, Florida. Jane Doe 1 forcibly touched and attempted and or threatened to touch Lil Rod's intimate areas and or touched the plaintiff with her own intimate body parts. Jane Doe 1 used her mouth and performed oral sex on the plaintiff while he was urinating in the bathroom. Lil Rod fought her off while Diddy and his associates sat outside loudly laughing. Jane Doe 1 then followed Mr. Jones outside of the restroom and began undressing in front of Mr. Combs and his associates, straddled Mr. Jones, and attempted to have a forced sexual intercourse with him. Now, note they said that they had just taken them drugs too, okay? And Lil Rod said he was sober. As a result, Jane 1's conduct, plaintiff has suffered and continues to suffer harm, physical injury, blah, 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 blah. And they think you should pay him. Excuse me. The conduct of Jane Doe 1 described above was willful, wanton, and malicious. Okay, same thing. Pay him because she did the shit. Fourth cause of action. Premise liability for sexual assault committed by Young Miami's cousin, Jane Doe 1, against Mr. Combs. Mr. Jones incorporates that by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if he set forth Miami. Mr. Jones was sexually assaulted by Jane Doe 1 in Miami, Florida on Thanksgiving 2022. Mr. Combs was present while Mr. Jones was being assaulted, and Mr. Jones was illegally on the premises as a guest and invitee of Mr. Combs. Jane Doe 1 was illegally on the premises and a guest and invitee of Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs owned the premises and had dominion and control over the premises where Mr. Jones was harmed. Mr. Combs had dominion and control over the actions of Jane Doe 1 and failed to step in and stop Jane Doe from sexually assaulting Miss Jones. I don't know how he could have really done that, but this is like a liability. Saying like, you invited this hoe over here and you saw her trying to suck on my dick and fuck on me and you didn't stop. Okay? And this your house. That's basically what it is. You ain't called police. Now, as the property owner, Mr. Combs had a duty to protect Mr. Jones from harm he suffered at the hands of Jane Doe, and Mr. Combs breached his duty when he failed to stop Jane Doe from sexually assaulting Mr. Jones. In furtherance of this breach, Mr. Combs was laughing and encouraging Jane Doe 1 to continue her assault on Jones. Mr. Jones has suffered immensely because of Mr. Combs' intentional breach of his duty for them. According to, and then he's hurt. He's hurt, and it was malicious, and you need to pay him. Okay, fifth cause of action. Premises liability for the sexual assault committed by Cuba Gooding Jr. This is against Mr. Combs. Okay, this is when Cuba Gooding Jr. was trying to fuck him on the boat, okay? Mr. Jones incorporates that by references all preceding paragraphs, realleges them if they were set forth here by him. Here, Mr. Jones was sexually assaulted by Cuba Gooding Jr. on the yacht rented by Mr. Combs in the Virgin Islands on January 2023. Mr. Combs was present while Cuba Gooding Jr. was assaulting Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones was legally on the premises as a guest and invitee of Mr. Combs. Cuba Gooding Jr. was legally on the premises as a guest and invitee of Mr. Combs, and Mr. Combs owned, even through renting, the premises and had dominion and control over the premises where Mr. Jones was harmed. Mr. Combs had dominion and control over the actions of Cuba Gooding Jr. and failed to step up and step in and stop Cuba Gooding Jr. from sexually assaulting Mr. Jones. Same stuff. You could have kept him from trying to play it in between my legs and in my butt, and you didn't, and I think you should pay me. Okay. Sixth cause of action. Trafficking and Victims Protection Act against the defendants Sean Combs, Justin Combs, KK, and Combs Global. Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if he set forth herein. Defendants, you know all them folks, and knowingly and intentionally participated in, perpetrated, assisted, supported, and facilitated sex trafficking venture, was in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce together with others in violations of 18 United States Court 1591A and 1. Among other things, defendant Sean, Justin, KK, and Combs Global knowingly and intentionally recruited, enticed, provided, obtained, advertised, and solicited by various means Mr. Jones as well as other class members, knowing that defendants Sean, Justin, KK, and Combs Global would use means of force, threats of force, fraud, coercion, and a combination of such means to cause Lil Rod as well as others, some of whom were under the age of 17, to engage in commercial sex acts. Defendants and its employees had actual knowledge that they were perpetrating and facilitating Mr. Combs' sexual abuse and sex trafficking conspiracy to recruit, solicit, entice, coerce, harbor, transport, obtain, and provide Mr. Jones as well as others who are under the age of 17 into commercial sex acts through means of force, threats of force, fraud, absence, abuse of process, and coercion. Despite knowledge, defendants, blah, 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 paid for, facilitated, perpetrated, and participated in Diddy's violation of the United States Code 18, okay, which defendants knew and were reckless in disregard of the fact that Mr. Jones would coerce, defraud, and force Mr. Jones to engage in commercial sex acts. The defendant's actions were in and affecting interstate foreign commerce, including its music distributing and publishing activities, which were in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce. By taking the concrete steps alleged in this complaint, defendants Sean Combs, Justin KK, Combs Global knowingly participated in sex trafficking and furthered the Combs sex trafficking venture. The concrete steps constituted taking part in the sex trafficking venture and were necessary for its success. The concrete steps constituted active engagements by defendants in Mr. Combs' sex trafficking venture. The defendants knew that it was active engagement would lead to and cause coercive commercial sex trafficking. As a part of perpetuating TVPA violations between on or about September 12, 2022 and throughout November 2023, defendants Sean Combs, Justin KK, Combs Global concealed his delivery of hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash to Mr. Combs and his associates. In addition to participating in TVPA violations, defendants willfully failed to file required taxes with the federal government. The defendants, all of them, affirmative conduct was committed knowing and in reckless disregard to the facts that Mr. Combs would use cash and the financial support provided by the defendants Love Records, Motown Records, and Universal Music Group as a means of defrauding. Well, how did that move? I didn't mean for that to move. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm over here on this page. Right. Defrauding, forcing, and coercing sex acts from the plaintiff, Jones, as well as others. Defendant Sean Combs, Justin Combs, KK, and Combs Global conduct was outrageous and intentional. On about January 2023, Justin Combs engaged in a freak-off session on a yacht with his fathers, etc. Can you imagine, you fucking with your parents? Like, I mean, like, look, Dad, I'll bust this one wide open. Like, I don't know. Like, is that some man shit? No. Let me buy you a whole son. Like, no. The defendant's knowing and intentionally conduct has caused Lil Rod serious harm, blah, blah, blah. Defendants knowingly caused Lil Rod harm that is sufficiently serious under all surrounding circumstances to compel a reasonable person of the same background in the same circumstances to perform or continue performing commercial sexual activity, avoid incurring that harm. This case does not involve mere fraud. Instead, defendant Sean Combs and all of them, criminal conduct and perpetrating TVPA violations was outrageous and intentional because it was a deliberate furtherance. I've never seen this word for it. Furtherance of a widespread and dangerous criminal sex trafficking organization. The defendant's criminal conduct also invents a high degree of moral turpitude and demonstrated such wanton dishonesty as to imply a criminal indifference to civil obligations. I hate when people drop stuff and bump stuff above me late at night. It sounds creepy. Scares the heck out of me. The defendant's criminal conduct was directed specifically at Mr. Jones, who was the victim of Mr. Combs' sexual abuse and sex trafficking harassment. The defendant's outrageous and intentional conduct in this case is a part of a pattern and practice by profiting by undertaking illegal, high-risk, high-reward actions. Well, I'm trying to figure out where's the high reward in fucking people for money. Unless you run it hoes. By virtue of these knowing and intentional violations, the defendants are liable to Mr. Jones for damages they sustain in reasonable attorney's fees, aka pay him. 7th cause of action: aiding, abetting, and inducing a sex trafficking venture in violation of Trafficking Victims Protection Act against the defendants, Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity as CEO, UMG Motown Records. So this is the same thing, and they have argued to take these people off. That's what's currently happening off of this, because they're saying that they did not know what Diddy was doing with the money, and they wasn't there at the freak off. So how are they liable? Well, I'm gonna read some of this. Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if set forth herein. Defendants Lucian Grange and the records to enter a general partnership agreement with Sean Combs and Love Records as general business partners by individual members in response to the actions of the partners in partnership. Defendants Lucian Grange in his capacity as CEO, according to Ethiopia, this financial support was supposed to pay or reimburse Love Records for certain and invoice recording costs incurred by Love Records in making the Love album. According to the plaintiff, Mr. Jones, while the Combs Rico enterprise was engaging in sex trafficking activities as it was making the Love album. Upon information and belief, the defendants, Lucian Grange, the CEO, did not implement any mechanism to monitor Mr. Jones and Love Records how they were spending the money. As a result of their intentional or negligent failure to duty to supervise, defendants Lucian Grange, the CEO, aided and abetted and induced Sean Combs' sex trafficking venture that was in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, together with others, in violation of 18 United States court statutes. And, you know, I'm not going into all of this because we already know what this says. Is basically they finance the Love album and they didn't oversee what the money was being checked for. And we read earlier that they just said it was album. It was, miscellaneous. And so they're trying to charge them with negligence of this. And because they were negligent, he was sex trafficked. And if they had been paying attention and doing their due diligence, none of this wouldn't happen, because Mr. Combs wouldn't have had the money to be fucking people, but he still would have had the money to be fucking people. So as a result of their general partnership and their failure to monitor their financing of defendants Sean Combs and Love Records, Mr. Grange, the CEO, are punishable by principle under 18 United States courts, blah, 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 and thereby committed and perpetrated violations of Chapter 77 when it aided and abetted, counsel, commanded, induced, procured Combs and his co-conspirators sex trafficking venture and sex trafficking of Lil Rod as well as others. Yeah, see, it said again. Because they had a partnership, it's like they okayed the sex trafficking. Yeah, KK did all the wire transfer. I'm skimming this for you because it's redundant. Yeah, they threatened to beat your ass if you didn't do it. That's what that's saying. Sex and direct reports, sex trafficking. They received things of value. Then they were transporting things and doing the RICO. And despite such knowledge, through their intentional negligent failure to monitor how the financial report of Mr. Combs, blah, blah, blah. They violated these statutes. And because of that, they should have known if they conducted a simple investigation. They acted in reckless disregard of the fact that Combs would coerce the fraud to force Mr. Jones to engage in commercial sex acts. Now I see what is. I'm trying not to go ahead with what has happened because them arguing about this and sending letters out in reply to this. Violation committed, knowing disregard, financial. Okay, y'all knew that he was gonna spend this money fucking on people, and you didn't do nothing. Their unchecked financial support, defendants Sean Combs and Love Records Inc. and defendants Lucian Grange and the record companies abetted and aided and induced Combs violations and caused Mr. Jones harm that is sufficiently serious under all surrounding circumstances to compel a reasonable person of the same background, same circumstance to continue performing commercial sexual activity in order to avoid incurring that harm. This does not involve mere fraud, but they blah blah. It's redundant. I think we can go past this. And he wants them to pay him, the record company, too. Hey, lovely Madison. Eighth cause of action needed for sexual assault against Jane Doe, Young Miami's cousin. So this is another case, another charge against the cousin who sucked him off in the bathroom. Mr. Jones incorporates by the reference to all preceding paragraphs, realleges them if he was set forth fully therein. Jane Doe 1 content created an unreasonable risk of causing emotional distress to Lil Rod. And Jane Doe 1 knew or should have known that such conduct was likely to result in an emotional distress that might or likely would cause illness or bodily harm. Is he implying that he got a disease? The plaintiff's emotional distress was foreseeable to Jane Doe 1. As a direct and proximate result of negligent conduct of Jane Doe 1, the plaintiff suffered and will continue to suffer severe emotional distress. And her conduct was wanton, malicious, willful, and cruel, entitling the plaintiff to punitive damages. So she got to pay him too. Ninth cause of action, sexual assault against Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs created unreasonable risk of causing emotional distress to the plaintiff. The plaintiff knew that or should have known that such conduct was likely to result in emotional distress and might have or would have caused illness to bodily harm. So they knew that was going to fuck with him and he want them to pay him. 10th cause of action. I don't know what these words are. He headed for sexual assault. Jane Doe. Jane Doe engaged in conduct towards the plaintiff that is extreme and outrageous to exceed the bounds of decency in a civilized society, namely by inter alia subjecting him to assault and misconduct. The sexual assault and misconduct by Jane Doe 1 were extreme and outrageous conduct that shocks the conscience. And these actions were taken with the intent to cause a disregard for substantial probability of causing severe emotional distress. The defendant's conduct was wanton, malicious, willful, cruel, entitling the plaintiff to pay that nigga. Okay. 11, same thing with Mr. Combs. Same thing. He knew it was going to cause him emotional distress, and you need to pay him. 12, cause of action against Cuba Gooding Jr. Same shit. You knew what you was doing was gonna fuck with my head, and you need to pay me. 13th cause of action against Mr. Gooding. Okay. Mr. Gooding conduct created unreasonable risk of causing emotional distress to the plaintiff, and plaintiff knew or should have known such conduct, and you was giving me emotional distress, and I think you should pay me. 14th cause of action, sexual assault. Oh, he get Mr. Gooding good, okay? As described above, Mr. Gooding Jr. frightened and placed plaintiff in apprehension of harm when he physically and sexually assaulted him on a yacht chartered by Mr. Combs in the United States Virgin Islands. Mr. Gooding Jr. forcibly touched and attempted and or threatened to touch the plaintiff's intimate areas and or touch plaintiff with his own intimate body parts. Mr. Gooding Jr. used his hand to forcibly touch the Lil Rod while he was sitting on the yacht. The plaintiff pushed him off while Mr. Combs failed to intervene. As a result, Mr. Gooding Jr.'s conduct, the plaintiff has suffered and continues to suffer harm, including physical injury, severe emotional distress, humiliation, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which he is entitled to an award of monetary damages and other relief. Okay? And then he was malicious and disregard, and you got to pay him, sir. Okay? 15th cause of action, knowing beneficiary in sex trafficking venture in violation of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. This is against the record company. They wasn't there. Upon information and belief, through the general partnership of the defenders, Sean and them, they knowingly and intentionally benefited financially by receiving things of value from participating in, assisting, supporting, facilitating an illegal coercive sex trafficking venture that was in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce together with others. The record companies took many concrete steps to aid in participating in Mr. Combs' sex trafficking venture. Among the concrete steps, the defendant Lucian Grange and the record companies took aid to Mr. Combs as providing unfettered, that means unlimited access to financing, which made the sex trafficking venture possible. Provided Mr. Combs with large sums of U.S. currency caused by the record company to receive the benefits detailed throughout this pleading. The defendant Lucian and the record company's willingness to provide large sums of unchecked financing to Mr. Combs was the quid pro quo for it receiving the benefits detailed within this pleading from Mr. Combs. Upon information and belief, the financing of Lucian and the record companies provided what was necessary for Mr. Combs to coerce Lil Rod to engage in commercial sex acts. The financially directly formed part of the commercial nature of his sex acts. The financing was also necessary and required part of Mr. Combs' recruitment of plaintiff Jones as well as other sex workers. By providing unchecked financing, the defendant, Mr. Grange, in his capacity as CEO of all the record companies, knew or should have known that the money would be used to fund sex trafficking. Oops, I did that. To fund, which made the sex trafficking venture possible. Providing Mr. Combs with large sums of money, U.S. currency, caused Mr. Grange, the CEO, to receive the benefits detailed throughout this pleading. The record company's willingness to provide large sums of unchecked financing to Mr. Combs was quid pro. Okay, we're going to read this again. Let's fast forward. And it's again, they should have known what the money was going for. Okay, upon information and belief and unchecked financing that the defendant Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity as CEO of UMG, all the record companies, provided went far beyond providing routine partnership or compensation to a general business partner. It was far from routine for the defendant's Lucian Charles Grange in his capacity as the record company CEO to provide substantial financing throughout the years to Mr. Combs, who did not have an apparent legitimate need for such extravagant sums. The sheer number of quote-unquote listening parties, yacht parties, and nighttime writers' camps after parties for which the defendants of the record companies, either intentionally or unintentionally funded, went far beyond normal for the music industry. The defendants, the record company, should have known through reasonable inquiry that they were feeding Mr. Combs sexual deviancy. Moreover, the circumstances in which Mr. Combs requested such large amounts were far from routine and should have raised numerous red flags, taking it well outside routine circumstances. But it didn't. When you did it, you can do what you want, okay? Upon information and belief, the reasons that the defendant's Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity as CEO of all the record companies, ignored the numerous red flags about Mr. Combs was to receive financial benefits from Mr. Combs and his sex trafficking venture. Defendant's Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity as CEO, of the record companies, knew that it would gain far from routine financial benefits by ignoring the red flags associated with Mr. Combs and by participating in his sex trafficking venture. Upon information and belief, according to the concrete, is this going to say this? Yes. Mr. Grange and the record companies took up aid to participate in Combs' sex trafficking venture, were up to numerous lines of financing for Mr. Combs' production of the Love album. By opening these unchecked lines of finance, Mr. Grange and the record company received many benefits from participating in Mr. Combs' venture. Through their general business partnership agreement with the defendant, they adopted by association the intentional acts of the general business partner, Diddy, affirmative conduct that caused the defendants, the record company, to receive those benefits. Upon information and belief, among those concrete steps that Mr. Grange and the record company took to aid Combs' sex trafficking venture between about 2003, they went way back, to 2005. 2009 to 2015 and 2022, and continually through about November 2023. The record companies concealed its delivery of vast sums, financing like millions of dollars to Combs and his associates. To benefit from Combs' sex trafficking venture, the record company willfully failed to do their due diligence and ensure that their general business partners, Diddy and the record company, his record company, accurately accounted for all finances that they receive as it relates to the establishment of Love Records and its distribution of Love album by timely filing required tax disclosures surrounding the funding of these sex trafficking parties with the federal government, because doing so would imperil its ability to profit from the sex trafficking venture. Excuse me. So they saying, they didn't check the taxes, none of that. They just said, here go the money. Due to their status as general partner of defendant Combs and Love Records, defendants Lucian Charles Grange in his capacity as CEO of UMG record companies. There go my baby. They were equally liable for the concealment of the financial transactions caused to receive financial benefits through the continuation of Combs' sex trafficking venture. And y'all hit the like button. Y'all be loving towards me, okay? I may not give you no Tucci, but we can read about it. Just give me a like, okay? I ain't giving you no Tucci or no Coochie. Okay, this is the same thing. There, I don't see nothing different. They didn't take the steps to make sure that he wasn't sex trafficking. Where the money went because he was sex trafficking. And they were benefiting from it. Okay, here's something. The coercive sex trafficking venture outlined through their general business partnership deal with defendant Sean Combs and Love Records, the record company knowledge went as far beyond having abstract awareness of sex trafficking in general. Indeed, the record company's representatives were present at Chalice recording studios and in Combs' Miami and Los Angeles homes while he was actively engaging in acts enumerated in this pleading, and large sums of financing and the defendants, Mr. Grange and the record company, gave him access to. Thus, the defendants, Mr. Grange and the record company, did not simply fail to adequately detect signs of Combs' sex trafficking. It did detect multiple signs of Combs' coercive sex trafficking venture and continued to participate in the venture. Mr. Grange and the record company knew, or should have known, that the venture was ongoing, which is why Combs required vast sums of financing. Mr. Grange, as the CEO of the record company, extend well beyond a situation of failing to train themselves and their staff about recognizing the warning signs of sex trafficking. Mr. Grange and its record company, in his capacity, did not recognize the signs of sex trafficking. Upon information and belief, indeed, Mr. Grange, as the record company, employees knew about Combs' sex trafficking venture, but the defendants, Mr. Grange and the record company, decided to continue failing Combs' sex trafficking funding of facilitating the Combs' sex trafficking venture rather than ending its participation in the venture. Upon information and belief upon the signs of defendant Lucian Charles Grange as his capacity of CEO UMG Motown Records, record company, was facilitating Combs' sex trafficking venture were the facts that came to the attention of the defendants, Lucian Grange and the record company, from reporting of Cassie Ventura mentioned above. Upon information and belief among the signs of defendant Charles Lucian Grange as the CEO, was facilitating Combs' sex trafficking venture were those facts that came into the attention of the defendants, Lucian Grange as the record company CEO, were those facts that came to its attention through the complaints filed by Cassie Ventura of Combs' sex trafficking. Because of those complaints, Mr. Grange, as the record company exec, knew to a certainty that Combs was engaged in sex trafficking. So he's saying because Cassie made her complaint that he knew that they were sex trafficking. And so at that point, the record company needed to stop fooling with Diddy. I found that interesting. What's this? Jay. He knew the names of many of Combs' sex trafficking freak off participants. Young Miami, Daphne Joy, Stevie J, and Jade. Mr. Grange, as the record company CEO, helped to conceal the names of Combs' victims from the public and from law enforcement and prosecuting agencies by helping to conceal the existence of the sex trafficking venture. Among the ways in which defendants Lucian Charles Grange, in his capacity as CEO in UMG record company, helped to conceal the venture's existence by failing to properly monitor or audit Sean Combs' money. And blah, blah, blah. Hold on 1 second, y'all. 1 second. I'm not going to even go to commercial. I hear my voice sounding kind of raspy. This is starting to get redundant. Ethiopia's declaration, as well as ensuring proper accounting and tax reporting, was made to the federal government. Additionally, they knew or should have known that the defendant Combs employed and empowered Fahim Muhammad, that's the fixer, y'all, to handle law enforcement and defendant KK to compensate the sex workers. Upon information and belief, his capacity, Mr. Grange, concealment included failure to ensure that the general business partner, Sean Combs, in Love Records, properly reported that financial support of Mr. Combs to the federal government for tax purposes. This includes reporting all payments or wire transfers sent to Carisha Romika Brownlee, Jade Ramey, and Daphne Joy Cervantes Narvaez. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange had constructive knowledge of Combs' sex trafficking venture because of specific acts by Mr. Combs that put it on notice of particular ongoing sex trafficking venture. Among the specific acts were Combs' use of vast sums of financing and the club love parties that representatives of UMG periodically attended. Defendant Combs had drugs and sex workers present in the circumstances that should have prompted defendant Lucian Grange, the record company, and its employees to raise questions about Combs' sex trafficking and its use of financially provided to them by the defendants of the record company. Let's see, what else is here? Okay, among specific acts giving rise to constructive knowledge that were facts that were associates, Mr. Combs made numerous reimbursement requests to the defendants, the record company, through Mr. Combs' accountant, Robert Greenhill. The circumstances of these reimbursement requests gave defendants notice that Mr. Combs' sex trafficking enterprise was being funded. Interesting. I don't quite understand that. Upon information and belief, among the financial benefits that the defendant's Lucian Grange, at his capacity of CEO, UMG, and Motown Records, the record company, received for participating in and facilitating Combs' sex trafficking venture were affiliation and access to Combs' popularity. Before Cassie Victoria's lawsuit was filed, Mr. Combs was popular and highly influential figure in the music industry to whom where everyone wanted to connect. Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties. Affiliation with or general partnership with Mr. Combs garnered legitimacy, immense success, and access to the top and emerging artists, celebrities, famous athletes, political figures, musicians, and international dignitaries like British Royal Prince Harry. And he over here like, I get into this. The defendants, Mr. Grange and the record company, knew firsthand the power, influence, and effect attaching themselves to Mr. Combs would have on their bottom line, and as evidence in the repeated general business partnership agreements with Mr. Combs, 2003, 2005, 2009, and 2015, and 2022 to 2023, the defendants of the record company profit from their affiliation with Mr. Combs and their general business partnership, which came with unmonitored financing that may have supported his sex trafficking enterprise. Mr. Combs and Combs controlled entities used the financing they received from general business partners to facilitate their sex trafficking venture. Mr. Combs benefited from this general business partners' apparent willful blindness through their willingness to provide large amount of financing in suspicious circumstances and their failure to ensure that their general business partners properly reported their finances to the government. Well, apparently they was doing something right, even when they were participating with the RICO. I think it's just like the honor system with anybody. If you making money with somebody, right, and you see everything is going good, you gonna just, give them some money. You ain't gonna ride their back because you like, okay, you done did right by me. Why would I keep a strong hand over you? I always get my money back. I don't care what you do with the money as long as you give me my money back. And that's a I done poke myself in the eye. That's a thin line to me. But who am I? Who are me? Okay, the venture was a referral of business opportunities for Mr. Combs and his co-conspirators. Access to up-and-coming artists, producers, songwriters, and creatives. Defendants Lucian and the record company profited from those referred business opportunities. Mr. Combs referred to business opportunities to the defendant, Lucian Charles Grange, and the record company in exchange for financing his sex trafficking venture. These referrals were quid pro quo for defendants Lucian Grange. I'm just assume I'm talking about the record company. Unchecked financing and establishment of Love Records and the funding and reimbursement for the invoice expenses associated with the creation of the Love album. Now, how you know that man want to fuck in order to create the album? I'm just saying. Unless he told him, Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange knowingly received financial benefits in return for his assistance, support, and facilitation of Combs' sex trafficking venture. Mr. Grange knew or should have known that if it stopped assisting, supporting, or facilitating Combs' sex trafficking venture, it would no longer receive those benefits. Mr. Grange knew and was reckless in disregard of the fact that it was Combs' pattern and practice to use the channels and instrumentalities of interstate and forest commerce, private jets, yachts, and commercial airplanes to entice, recruit, solicit, harbor, provide, and obtain the transport of young women and young men for purposes of commercial sex acts. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange and his employees had actual knowledge that they were facilitating Combs' sexual abuse and sex trafficking conspiracy to recruit, solicit, entice, coerce, harbor, transport, obtain, and propel Mr. Jones into commercial sex acts through the means of force, threats of force, fraud, absence of process, and coercion, and combination of all of three means. Okay, this is about to go into the same thing that they said with the other ones. Okay, this one's a little bit different. Mr. Grange, in his capacity through his employees and agencies, actively participating in sex trafficking conspiracy that led Mr. Jones and the sex workers to believe that they would be rewarded if they cooperated and acquiesced to Mr. Combs' coercive demands. I'm not seeing this. Y'all tell me if you seeing this. That I could see Diddy with the control, but not the record company, because they're not there for the day-to-day stuff, He's not on the phone talking about, you can fuck, I'm gonna send you $1 million so you can go fuck some hoes. Like, I don't see it. I don't see it. I know big corporations cover things, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they were defrauded, and because of the money, they were sex trafficking. Okay. Upon information and belief, the exchange and facilitating of covering up Combs' commercial sex trafficking, defendants Mr. Grange received international recognition, notoriety, and praise for the establishment of Love Records and the development and distribution of the Love album. This was a result of securing Sean Combs' Love Records relationship, facilitating and covering up Combs' sexual trafficking and misconduct was a means of obtaining economic success and promotion with the defendants, Mr. Charles Grange and the UMG hierarchy. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange knowingly and intentionally conduct has caused Mr. Jones serious harm, including without limitation physical, psychological, emotional, financial, and reputational harm. The intentional conduct has caused Mr. Jones harm that is sufficiently seriously we went on that. Okay, so this is the repeat of some of the stuff. Some of it's different, some of it's not. This one, it's the same, but it's a little bit, wanton dishonesty. And hey, you need to pay him, okay? You need to pay him. 16 calls of action. Obstruction of the enforcement of the Trafficking Victim Protection Act against the record company. Mr. Grange and his officers and employees knowingly and intentionally obstructed and attempted to obstruct, interfere with, and prevented the enforcement of 18 U.S.C. Violation. And its activity herein referred to collectively simply as obstruction. So they're basically saying that the record company provided obstructing justice. Predominantly enforced seemingly harmed Mr. Jones by directly resulting him in coercively being caused to engage in commercial sex acts in other ways. Upon information and belief, defendant Sean Combs has a well-documented history of criminal investigations. Lucian was on notice that Mr. Combs' proclivity to criminal activity. They knew or should have known that Mr. Combs' sex trafficking operation would or could result in a criminal investigation by state and federal prosecutors for violating, among other laws, the TVP Act. Defendants Lucian Grange should have taken a cue from the federal prosecutor's arrest and prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein on or about July 2019. You think they knew, Ray? Interesting. So over here now they saying like, well, you knew you should have taken a cue from Jeffrey Epstein, but you didn't. On or about that date, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Southern District of New York indicted Epstein and unnamed associates for violating TVPA. Later on, about June 29, 2020, the same office indicted Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, for conspiracy to entice minor victims to travel to be abused by Epstein. Mr. Combs, defendant J. Combs, and KK, and her direct reports, Brendan Paul, Frankie Santella, Moy Bond, all engaged in the same activities as Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell. The fact that Sean and Justin and KK and her direct reports, Brendan, Frankie, and Moy, may have done worse. Ooh-wee. You putting on some sauce on this. Upon information and belief, sex trafficking organization and concealing its actions thereafter, Mr. Grange obstructed, interfered with, and prevented the state and federal government enforcement of TVPA against Mr. Combs, Justin, KK, Brendan, Frankie, and Moy, to the extent that the federal government was able to ultimately charge Mr. Combs' defendants, Justin, KK, Brendan, and Frankie, and Moy, with TVPA violations. And the filing of those charges was delayed by the defendants, Lucian Grange, because of that delay, because of his actions. And because of that delay, Mr. Jones was coercively caused to engage in commercial sex act. So basically he's saying if they didn't blow the whistle, then he might not have had to fuck. I'm going to stop saying that. He might not have had sex with the prostitutes, okay? He might not have had to get his some head after he was in the bathroom peeping. Does Lucian Grace have 3 sons and ex-wife who got out of prison? Are you crazy? Hey, boo. As one example of how the defendants, Lucian Grange, in his capacity of CEO, attempted to obstructed, interfere with, and prevented state and federal government's enforcement of TVPA. Defendants, Lucian Grange, provided financial resources to Mr. Combs so that the goers of commercial sex acts would escape the detention of state and federal law enforcement and prosecuting agencies. The defendants, Mr. Grange, provided financial resources to further Combs's and his son, Justin and KK, and Brendan, Frankie, and Moy sex trafficking venture with the purpose of helping Mr. Combs, Justin, KK, Brendan, Frankie, and Moy evade criminal liability for violating the TVPA. And if y'all don't know what the TVPA is, that's the Sex Trafficking Protection Act. Okay. As an example of how the defendants, Mr. Grange, attempted to obstruct, interfere with, and prevented state and federal government's enforcement of TVPA, the defendants, Mr. Grange, come on with this repeat stuff, failed to ensure that the general business partners, Sean Combs and Love Records, timely, accurately reported to the federal government the required tax forms that detailed the partnership payments provided by the defendants, Mr. Grange, to Mr. Combs. Timely filing of these reports is required by the United States Code and related laws and regulations. You said 1960, he's only 16 years old. Well, I'm confused. Timely filing of these reports is required by the United States Tax Code and related laws and regulations. These reports are tools that the federal government uses to detect and prosecute among illegal activities, sex trafficking, and violation of the TVPA. By failing to ensure that the general business partner timely and accurately filed the required tax reporting documents regarding Mr. Combs' partnership and financial transactions, defendants Lucian Grange attempted to obstruct, interfered with, and prevented the government's enforcement of the TVPA by concealing from the government's attention that Mr. Combs is financing in aid of sex trafficking. Hold on, y'all. Okay, business never stops. Mr. Charles Grange, born on leap year. Oh, he's only 16 years old. Oh, I get it now. He's worth $22 billion. Whoo, child. That's from the sex trafficking. He just kind of scared me creeping around that corner. By providing unchecked financial support, Mr. Grange intended and knew that Mr. Combs' commercial sex acts would escape the detection of law enforcement and prosecuting agencies for a period of time. Defendants Mr. Grange provided financial support and further to Combs' sex trafficking venture with the purpose of helping Mr. Combs evade criminal activity for violating the TVPA. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange, obstruction or attempted obstruction, interference with, and prevention of enforcement of the TVPA were done intentionally and knowingly. For example, Mr. Grange knew that Mr. Combs was high risk, specifically high risk to violate the TVPA through continuing criminal sex trafficking activities. As evidenced by Cassie Ventura's civil complaint, she informed members of Mr. Combs' parent label about the abuses he was visiting upon her, and instead of coming to her rescue, they forced her to return his calls and to return to his sex trafficking enterprise. Woo! That's deep. So they told her, don't break up with him. Stay. Go back. That's deep. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange was aware that Mr. Combs had a laundry list of criminal charges and barely escaped serving prison time. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs engaged in witness intimidation and bribery to escape criminal liability for shooting Natanya Rubin in the face. Defendants Lucian Charles Grange was aware that there were public allegations that Mr. Combs' illegal conduct was facilitated by several named co-conspirators, and they were made aware of this through complaints made by, this says my Cassie Ventura, and the lawsuit by former Diddy sex worker Jonathan Odie. That's a man. Defendant Mr. Grange concealed from the federal government its numerous financial payments to Mr. Combs and Love Records. Defendant Mr. Grange continued to its affirmative conduct by providing financing to Mr. Combs so that he could make payments to his co-conspirators with the knowledge that such transactions did not produce a clear paper trail. Defendants Mr. Lucian Grange intentionally attempted to obstruct, in many ways interfered with, and prevented the enforcement of the TVPA by investigators, by prosecuting agencies. So that's almost like he was, laundering the money. He knew what was going on, and he just took a blind eye. Upon information, Mr. Grange's relationship with Mr. Combs and providing his sex trafficking venture with unchecked financing went far beyond a normal and lawful partnership relationship. Mr. Grange, in his capacity, knew and intended that his relationship with Mr. Combs would go far beyond normal music industry relationships. Defendant Mr. Grange knew that his decision to go beyond a normal music relationship with Mr. Combs obstructed the ability of law enforcement and prosecuting agencies to enforce the TVPA. Like they were washing the money. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange, obstruction of the government's TVPA and other law enforcement efforts was intentional and willful, and therefore, Mr. Grange, intentionally and willfully caused Mr. Combs' commission of the forcible commercial acts with Mr. Jones through its obstructing, supporting the concealment of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking venture. Mr. Grange knew that Mr. Combs and his other co-conspirators would use means of force, threats of force, fraud, coercion, and combination of such means to cause Lil Rod to engage in commercial sex acts. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange acted in reckless disregard of the fact and should have known that its obstruction in violation of Code 18 United States Court would directly and proximately lead to unlawful, coercive, commercial sex acts with Mr. Combs, with men like Lil Rod, young men and young women. They say Diddy like them all. Okay. We be pimping all over the world. Oh, okay. Upon information and belief, Mr. Grange obstruction has caused Mr. Jones serious harm, including without limitation, physical, psychological, financial, and reputational harm. And harm was directionally and proximately caused by the obstruction, and the harm resulting from obstruction was foreseeable. And Mr. Grange's obstruction has caused Mr. Jones harm that is sufficiently seriously and under surrounding circumstances to compel a reasonable person of the same background in the same circumstances to perform or continue performing commercial sexual activity to avoid incurring that harm. It looked like they're about to get redundant again. Mr. Grange, criminal conduct in obstructing the enforcement of the TVPA was outrageous and intentional because it was deliberate furtherance of a widespread and dangerous criminal sex trafficking organization. Ooh, they putting some sauce on it. Mr. Grange obstruction also evidenced a high degree of moral turpitude and demonstrated such wanton dishonesty as to imply a criminal indifference to civil obligations. They like he just didn't care. Mr. Grange's obstruction was directed specifically at Mr. Jones, who was the victim of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking organization. By virtue of these violations, Code 18 United States Court, Mr. Grange is liable to Mr. Jones, aka Lil Rod, for damages he sustained and reasonable attorney fees. Why? Because you need to pay him for his pain. And I think this is the last one, or next to the last one. 17th cause of action. Breach of oral contract against Love Records and Sean Combs. Remember, they said he worked for 13 months and he ain't pay him. Okay? Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them if he set forth fully herein. Plaintiff Jones and the defendants, Mr. Combs, Love Records, had an oral contract, Lil Rod, to receive $20,000 for every song he produced on the Love album. Mr. Combs agreed to allow Mr. Jones to keep his publishing, as well as 4 royalty points per song, and to credit him as a producer for every song that he touched, as well as credit him for each instrument that he played. Mr. Jones fully executed his obligations under the contract when he produced Deliver Me, Stay Part 1, Reaching, What's Love, Stay a While, Moments, Need Somebody, Homecoming, and Tough Love. I am going to listen to this record while I'm in the car. Mr. Jones worked on the following songs: Brought My Love and Creeping Remix. Mr. Jones lived and traveled with Mr. Combs from September 2022 to October 2023. Through the duration of that time, Mr. Combs did not compensate Mr. Jones for his time or the work he did on the above-mentioned songs. Mr. Combs also failed to provide Mr. Jones with a producer credit or the full royalty points for all songs. As a result of Mr. Combs' actions, Mr. Jones has suffered the following losses: $180,000, 4 royalty points and producer credit for the following songs: Deliver Me, Stay Part 1, Reaching, What's Love, Stay a While, Moments, Need Somebody, Homecoming, and Tough Love. As a result, Mr. Combs' actions, Mr. Jones has suffered the following losses: $40,000, 4 royalty points, and the producer credits for the following songs: Brought My Love and Creeping Remix. As a result of Mr. Combs' breach of contract, Mr. Jones has suffered and continues to suffer harm, including severe emotional distress, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which he is entitled to an award of monetary damages and other relief. Lil Rod say pay him for his pain. Conduct of Diddy described above as willful, wanton, and malicious. At all relevant times, Mr. Combs acted with conscious disregard for the plaintiff's rights and feelings, and acted with the knowledge of reckless disregard for the fact that his conduct was certain to cause injury to the plaintiff, Lil Rod. By virtue of foregoing, the plaintiff is entitled to recover punitive damage. Pay him. I'm glad you made it too, Ms. Indigo. And we are literally like on the last couple of pages. Just press the like button and you can dial it back. Prayer for relief. I didn't know they put this in law stuff. Wherefore, the plaintiff prays that the court enter the judgment in her favor against defendants containing the following relief: a declaratory judgment that the actions, conduct, and practices of the defendants complained of the herein violate the laws of the state of New York. An award of damages against the defendant in an amount to be determined at trial, plus prejudgment interest to compensate the plaintiff for all monetary and or economic damages, including but not limited to the loss of past and future income, wages, compensation, seniority, and other benefits of employee. Thank you. An award of damages against the defendant in an amount to be determined at trial, plus prejudgment interest to compensate the plaintiff for all non-monetary and or compensatory damages, including but not limited to compensation for a mental anguish, humiliation, embarrassment, stress, anxiety, emotional pain, and suffering, and emotional distress. And here it says her, but this is Lil Rod and this is him. So did he copy this shit from somebody? I don't know. Well, why does it say her? I lost my place. An award. Wait. A declaratory. Wait. I read that right. I'm sorry. I lost my place. I got stuck with the her. Okay. An award of punitive damage, an amount determined at trial, prejudgment interest in all amounts due, an award of cause that plaintiff has incurred in this action, including but not limited to the expert witness fees, which can be expensive, as well as the plaintiff's reasonable attorney's fees and costs to the fullest extent permitted by law, and such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. And we never know what that means, because like what Cardi B did to Tasha K, they felt their $4 million was just and proper. And actually, that was down from the original amount. And this was filed March 25th, 2024 in Brooklyn, New York. Tyrone Blackburn. So this is just fluff, I think, for the law. You know. So, my, in the words of, what's his name? King Payne. Okay. Or Johnny Gill. My. Okay. Since we've had a lot of things transpire with this case, it's like every day it's something new, right? What's that name? It's an attorney, Donald something. I forgot the man's name. He has made a response to Tyrone Blackburn. He's saying that, you know, he's making up things, basically, and putting on the complaint. And he's amending the complaint. And he's amending it without permission. He's misrepresenting the record company that Mr. Grange is CEO for. It's just like a lot of little stuff. And he really kind of berates Mr. Blackburn. I may or may not read it. It's just a few pages. Well, one is 22 pages. And then one's like a few pages. And Mr. Blackburn is trying to, you know, backpedal and pussy pop on some of the things he wrote to try to fix it. It's just quite interesting the way this case is going. Don't want to fully put my opinions on Lil Rod. I think anybody with these types of cases, of course, they're going to put some sauce on what really happened. And when you're talking about $30 million that you're suing for, you definitely have to put like extra on it to kind of make it, you know, believable. And I understand, you know, it's just a lot. It's a lot when you say that this man played in your booty hole. It's a lot because the average person, the average man wouldn't, and this is my opinion, the average man would not care about the money. It would be a lot of money. But I mean, these new generation fellas, like, they all gay. They just gay. And, you know, they try for anything. But The gangsters that I know, like if you walked up too close to them, anywhere near their genitals, they're going to bust you in the face. Period. Their voice is going to get deep and loud. And I also think when in the term of predators, and we talked about this with Mr. Kelly and Epstein, and there's a consistent thing. Predators is just what they are. They prey on people that they know they can get away with the stuff with. So they know how to catch people that are a little bit weaker, so to speak, or people that's desperate. This man was trying to feed his family. And according to this case, Diddy is exuding his power and influence. And he had the means to change this man's life for the positive. Instead, he changed it for the negative. And it wasn't a good experience for him. And I don't know if this man will be able to pursue his dreams for the rest of his life. And this is why they call it Hollyweird. There's so much darkness in Hollywood and in videos and music. I only know the tip of the surface from my experiences. Excuse me, because baby, I don't go in the rooms. You know, I hear things and people's innocence be taken away from them because they think they're going to have a life-changing experience. And it's not the type of life-changing experience that they think it's going to be. And like I said, I didn't want to give all my commentary on these pages on these videos where I was reading the pages. So I'll see if I come back in the next day or two, see what we're going. I might want to do something lighter. For the past couple of months, I've been saving all this paraphernalia for I Know You Lying, and different videos like that. So I'll see what I feel like doing. I still got a lot of stuff to write and to catch up on. And I'm breaking it down slowly. I just gotta focus. But I was in my room writing, about to lay down and watch a movie. Then I decided to get up and talk to y'all instead. And I stayed up here till my baby got home. So with that being said, I will bid y'all adieu. I hope that you have pressed the like button. Please press the like button. Please make sure you're subscribed. You can even join the membership if you like. I'll be forgetting to say that because I haven't been doing a lot of videos. You're right, Cat Williams talked about it. What's you saying to you? It would be yes. It's always something going on underneath in those parties. So if no one has told you that they love you today, I'm going to tell you that I love you. Tell someone else that they love you. Tomorrow, today now, where I'm at, it is Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. Go talk to your God. Thank God for rising for all of these illicit sins that these people are committing. Because I do believe in him, and I believe that he is coming again. Oh, look at the love. See people love in the universe. It comes right back. So I do love you. Go walk the kids out in nature. If you're going with your family to have some good dinner, go do that. If you're in Chicago, hit me up because I know where we're having, my organization is giving out free dinner tomorrow. If you're hungry, okay. And I'll just talk to you when I talk to you. Again, press the like button, subscribe button, hit the membership, okay. My name is Princess A.V. You have been watching the House of the Princess. And now it's time for me to, for real, literally turn out the lights and have a great evening. Bye-bye.